A lot of times we hear people bemoaning the loss of the Attitude and Ruthless Aggression eras, and we get it, those were wild times. But maybe they were too wild? With the advent of Crash TV, every segment had tons of cleavage, shocking twists, and excessive violence. But was it too much of a raunchy thing? When every week we've got a new bikini contest, pudding match, pillow fight, do they all start to lose their shock value? I'm Senior Siete for 7 Wrestling, and let's take a look at 7 risque WWE moments you've probably forgotten about. And yeah, we know there are many of you out there who haven't forgotten about these moments, and if you haven't, kudos for having such a solid memory. We can barely remember what we had for breakfast. Now, before we get into this, we appreciate your support, so if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leg drop that notification bell. Also, Gordon Holmes, the guy who does all of my Senior Siete drawings, has released a graphic novel about professional wrestling. It's called The Bad Guy from Legacy Comics. It's a heartwarming tale of wrestling and marriage. It is awesome. We'd love for you to support him because he's done so much for us. You'll find a link to purchase this graphic novel in the description below. Number 1. Rack the Halls. Triple H gets a lot of credit these days for being a creative innovator, and rightfully so. The build and intricacy of today's WWE storylines are at some of the highest levels we've ever seen. But one thing that rarely gets brought up when we're discussing his visionary prowess is the Holiday Topless Top Rope match. Now, what is that, you may ask? Well, Val Venus and Hardcore Holly would square off in a match with Terry Reynolds being Hardcore Holly's representative and Barbara Bush, best ring name ever, being Val Venus's second. There were no pinfalls, no submissions, but every time one of the competitors would be thrown over the top rope to the floor, his representative would have to take off a piece of clothing. This match would continue until one of the women was topless. Hilariously, during the match, Jim Ross would say that Triple H is just trying to gain favor with the male audience. You think? And by Triple H, do you mean the company as a whole? Holly and Venus would go out at the same time, and Terry would try that old strip poker trope of taking off her shoes first, but Hunter wasn't having any of that. Both of the women removed their dresses and the match was back on, and seeing as what little they were wearing, it was obvious this was under sudden death rules. Next one over the top loses, and sure enough, Val Venus would go crashing to the outside. Terry was excused and BB would have to remove her bra, but Hunter, remembering that he's a bad guy in all this, would hold his jacket over her so only he would get a peek. The crowd was infuriated, although honestly, come on, it's Monday Night Raw, what are you expecting? And Hunter brought it all back on theme by paraphrasing the classic holiday song, "Do you see what I see? No, you don't, because you're all a bunch of idiots." Surely, that must have landed him a one-way ticket to the naughty list. Number 2. Dress for Success. Now, here's a fun fact. The first bra and panties matches were actually called evening gown matches. They took their roots from the traditional tuxedo match in which two wrestlers would tear off each other's tuxedos in an attempt to humiliate one another. And believe me, the first time this gimmick was used for a women's match during the Attitude Era, it was a big deal. It was at the Unforgiven 1998 pay-per-view where Sable was going to be squaring off against Luda Vachon. And seeing as Sable was arguably one of the top 3 attractions in the company at the time, people were excited. As with most shocking stipulations, each time it was used, it got less and less interesting. So, to spice things up a bit, on the August 26, 1999 episode of SmackDown, Tori, not to be confused with Tori Wilson, was booked for an evening gown match against her heated rival Ivory, and would insist on coming to the ring naked. For reasons, I guess? This would be like being in a First Blood match with Sandman and he's cutting himself with a beer can on the way to the ring. Makes no sense. Fortunately, or unfortunately, based on how you feel about such things, Agent Tony Gurria forced her to wear a dress shirt. The match would continue under traditional evening gown match rules, with the thought being that Tori wasn't wearing her brassiere underneath her giant dress shirt. Tori would pick up the win, the evil Ivory would be humiliated, and Jerry Lawler would darn near burst into flames. Number 3. Tit For Tat. Okay, Um, the morality of this angle is absolutely insane. Help me out if you understand it. Melina, manager of the SmackDown Tag Team Champions M&M, otherwise known as Mercury, Melina, and Nitro, have a tag team title defense against the team of World Champion Batista and Rey Mysterio. This is on the December 16th, 2005 episode of SmackDown. Melina sneaks into Batista's locker room and makes a pitch that her boys are hoping for a night off so they can prepare for a future title defense against the Mexicools. All the while, she's just pawing at Evolution's animal like she's in a friggin' petting zoo. She tells Batista she'll make it worth his while, then plants a big ol' smooch on our world champ. We fade to black as things are getting heated. When we return, Melina is getting dressed and her once perfect hair is now noticeably askew. Clearly some Batista bombing has been taking place. She turns to the champ and says, "So, we have a deal, right?" Batista laughs and says, "Deal? No deal. Thanks for the warm-up though," and he leaves as a furious Melina watches on. So basically, she seduced him with a goal in mind. He allowed himself to be seduced, and then when it came time to pay up, he was like, nah. Again, the morality makes my brain hurt. Melina is willing to sleep with her opponent in order to retain the tag team titles. She's a bad guy. Good guy seemingly accepts the terms and makes sweet amore to the evil manager, so he's a bad guy. When she looks to make good on the offer, he declines, so he's a good guy? At any rate, Batista would get to have his cake and eat it too, as he would go on to win the SmackDown Tag Team titles that night with Rey Mysterio. Number 4, Spit Happens. There is not enough money in the world to get me to wear some wrestling shirts in public. Not this Val Venus shirt, definitely not this Test shirt, not this Buff Bagwell shirt. Actually, this is all a lie. Like Ted DiBiase says, everyone has a price, and I am definitely one of everyone. But there's one shirt that I would avoid for a variety of reasons. First of all, the bright yellow of the shirt really clashes with my eyes. Second, apples really aren't my thing. And third, the catchphrase would probably have me put on a government list somewhere. Carlito's shirt was referring to his habit of spitting apple chunks into the faces of people who didn't want to be cool, but come on. Come on. So, during the tail end of Trish Stratus' career, Carlito would run in and save her from an attack by Melina and Johnny Nitro. As the Canadian bombshell was thanking him, she'd allude to the shirt he was wearing and then whisper something mysterious into his ear. As she walked away, Carlito would just smile and say, "Now that's cool." And if you think you know what Trish said, please let us know in the comments section below. Actually, don't. Please just keep it to yourself. At any rate, kudos to Trish for cementing this new relationship with some TMI. Number 5. Can't believe how dumb this is. Quite honestly, the 2004 angle that took place where Kane became obsessed with Lita could take up its own list, but we're just going to focus on one extremely messed up facet of this bizarre storyline that often gets overlooked. That's right, Lita marrying the winner of a wrestling match, getting pregnant, almost miscarriage, actual miscarriage, the infamous baby punt. That can all wait. I really should give this thing its own video. Anyhow, to get you up to speed, Kane was stalking Lita, and her real-life boyfriend Matt would come to her aid. However, each time he tried to protect her, Matt got his rear end handed to him. A few weeks later, when Lita would show up with a positive pregnancy test, Matt was just over the moon and proposed marriage to his girlfriend. However, Kane was giddy as well because he could conceivably be the father. But how's that possible? Well, in order to protect Matt, here it comes, Lita had intercourse with Kane. That's right, in order to protect her boyfriend, a woman had relations with her stalker and allowed him to impregnate her with his demon seed. Yikes, and that's not even the most memorable thing of that train wreck of a feud. Number 6, Bourbon Bells. Now, this is a great example of what this list is all about. If you're doing sexy too frequently, it definitely loses its impact. There was a period where every week it seemed like SmackDown was coming up with a creative reason to prance the female talent around in bikinis. And on the September 4th, 2003 episode of SmackDown, we were treated to what was called the Bourbon Street Bikini Contest between Dawn Marie, Sable, Nydia, and Tori Wilson. Now, in the build-up to this bout, Nydia and Tori Wilson would be seen preparing backstage. We'd see Nydia putting in her, I think they're called cutlet, bra inserts, and come on, we know wrestling's fake, but there's no reason to break boudoir kayfabe like that on national TV. Let us believe in something. The duo would discuss their strategies for the competition, which I found surprising because I thought they just, took off their robes and paraded around. There must have been a lot more nuance that we were missing out on. Tori would then ask Nidhi to apply lotion to her back, and Nidhi's hands kept moving lower and lower and lower. And then we'd fade to black, leaving the rest to our imaginations. I like to think she ended up around her ankles. However, narratively, this segment was very problematic as they were both wearing different bikinis during the actual competition. I mean, continuity errors just kill the fantasy. Am I right? Number 7, Allied Powers. We've already talked about how WWE had stolen one joke from Austin Powers and turned it into one of the worst gimmicks of all time. Well, one good turn deserves another as the creative team once again tilled the fertile grounds that are the wacky misadventures of the International Man of Mystery. In this case, it's the gag where someone sees something normal happening behind a lit screen and assumes the shadows are something dirty. Mike Myers was such a fan of this bit that he did it in like 2 of the movies to lessening effect each time. So, on the May 24th, 2001 episode of SmackDown, where the mismatched team of martial arts expert Steve Blackman, hip-hop enthusiast Grandmaster Sexay, and Canadian bombshell Trish Stratus needed to show some form of chemistry, well, the creative team clearly went to their DVD collections for inspiration. Trish would be changing for the match behind a screen and would encourage Steve Blackman to help her with a tricky button. He would do so and, for some reason, take his trusty kendo stick with him. At which point, we were treated to this suggestive imagery. Grandmaster Sexay would then enter and show off his mastery of acting subtlety, all while Trish would say things like, "It's so hard," and Steve Blackman would say things like, "Wait till you see me beat someone over the head with it." Never mind the fact that a kendo stick looks absolutely nothing like a penis. At any rate, this was enough to get the trio on the same page, and they would go on to defeat the Right to Censor, later on treating us to not only Steve Blackman dancing, but Trish doing the most compact worm of all time. Well, there's our list. Did we forget any other risque WWE moments? If so, please leave them in the comments section below. Also, if you enjoyed this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and F5 that notification bell. Check out the description for a link to Gordon Holmes' graphic novel, The Bad Guy. Until next time, I'm Singer Siete for 7 Wrestling saying bye-bye.